October 14, 1943. 25,000 feet above central Germany, the air is thin, brittle, and lethally cold. At this altitude, metal contracts, lubricants thicken. Human breath crystallizes inside oxygen masks. The sky is a hard, washed-out blue, broken only by scattered contrails and the distant glint of aluminum moving in tight, defensive formation. I want you to picture the tail of a Boeing B-17 flying fortress in flight, not the nose, with its iconic greenhouse glazing, not the bomb bay, yawning open over hostile territory, but the very rear of the aircraft, a cramped, unheated compartment barely large enough for one man to kneel inside. A space shaped like a funnel of plexiglass and riveted aluminum. This is where the bomber is most vulnerable and where one of its youngest crewmen waits alone. Below him, Germany. Above him, nothing but thin air and incoming fighters. Staff Sergeant Michael Romano braces his boots against the aircraft's internal structure and settles onto the narrow bicycle-style seat that serves as his perch, his gloved hands close around twin Browning M2. The 50 caliber machine guns, each one nearly as heavy as he is. The weapons vibrate constantly with the engine's rhythm, a low mechanical tremor that never quite stops. Romano scans the sky through a narrow arc of visibility, the curved plexiglass distorting distance and speed. He is 19 years old, a former factory worker from Pittsburgh. No engineering training, no college education. And in this moment, he is the only thing standing between his aircraft and the German fighters climbing into position behind it. A dark shape moves against the sun. A Foch Luftwaffe 190 rolls into view, sliding into the bomber's blindest angle. 6 o'clock. Low. The textbook killing position. Romano leans forward and peers through his ring, and bade sight a crude metal circle and post, little changed from the iron sights of 19th century rifles. There is no calculation for speed, no correction for deflection, no allowance for the fact that both aircraft are closing at a combined velocity of more than 500 miles per hour. He fires. The Brownings roar. Tracers streak outward in long, glowing arcs. And once again, they pass harmlessly behind the attacking fighter. Seconds later, the German cannon answer. 20mm shells slam into the bomber's tail section. Aluminum skin tears open like paper. Shrapnel ricochets through the fuselage. Somewhere forward, a crewman shouts over the intercom. This exact scene will play out hundreds of times on this day. By nightfall, 60 B-17s will be gone. Another 130, 8 will limp home, so badly damaged they will never fly again. 600 American airmen will be dead or missing. The mathematics of daylight bombing have become merciless, and they are pointing toward collapse. What the senior commanders of the 8th Air Force do not yet know is that, back on a cold dispersal hardstand in eastern England, one exhausted tail gunner is about to sketch a solution that will change the survival odds of bomber crews across Europe, and it will involve mirrors. At first glance, the idea seems almost absurd. Mirrors are not weapons. They do not fire bullets. They do not explode. They do not appear in any Army Air Force's technical manual as a component of defensive armament. Yet the strange system that emerges from Romano's frustration will quietly become one of the most effective improvements ever made to the B-17's tail defense. To understand why, we must first understand just how badly the system had failed. When the B-17 Flying Fortress was conceived in the late 1930s, it embodied a doctrine inherited from naval warfare. The idea was simple and bold. If bombers carried enough machine guns, arranged to create overlapping fields of fire, they could defend themselves. Tight formations would concentrate defensive firepower. Enemy fighters would be deterred or destroyed before they could inflict serious losses. Army Air Force's publicity embraced the concept enthusiastically. The B-17 was marketed as a flying battleship, a fortress in the sky. Reality, as so often in war, was far less forgiving. By 1943, daylight bombing over Germany had exposed the fundamental weakness of the concept. Defensive guns were only as effective as the men aiming them, and tail gunners faced a problem that bordered on the impossible. The preferred German attack came from directly astern, either level or slightly below the bomber. From this position, a fighter could stay within the narrow cone of fire of the tail guns for only a few seconds, absorb inaccurate return fire, and then unleash devastating cannon strikes from beyond the effective range of American machine guns. The tail gunner, meanwhile, was expected to perform a feat of real time calculation under extreme stress. He had to estimate the enemy's speed and angle, calculate deflection without any mechanical assistance, compensate for bullet drop, and lead a target moving in 3 dimensions. All while wearing thick gloves, breathing through an oxygen mask, and kneeling in temperatures that could plunge below -40 degrees Fahrenheit. Even under controlled training conditions, expert gunners struggled to achieve hit rates above 12%. In combat, exhausted, oxygen-deprived, and under fire, actual hit rates dropped to 6 or 8%. German pilots knew this. Luftwaffe after-action reports from 1943 described the B-17's tail position as marginally dangerous, an inconvenience, a risk worth accepting. The casualty figures told the story with brutal clarity. Schweinfurt, Regensburg, Munster. Mission after mission, blood bombers faster than factories could replace them. Senior commanders in England and Washington began to question whether daylight precision bombing was even sustainable. Engineers proposed solutions. More guns, larger calibers, powered turrets. Boeing's Cheyenne Modification Center began work on an improved tail turret, but development and installation timelines stretched well into 1944. Retrofitting aircraft already in England was impractical. In the meantime, crews continued to die. Michael Romano arrived in this environment in August 1943. He was unremarkable on paper. Average training scores, adequate marksmanship, no sign of exceptional ability. He had been assigned to the tail position largely because he was small enough to fit inside it. Romano flew his first combat mission over the Netherlands. He fired hundreds of rounds at attacking fighters and believed he had scored hits. Gun camera footage later showed that every tracer had passed behind the targets. After his 3rd mission, he remained inside the aircraft after landing, long after the engines had shut down. His hands trembled from exhaustion as he stared at the guns and the sight between them. The problem, he realized, was not courage. It was not firepower. It was vision. Tail gunners were firing blind. They had no reliable way to see where their bullets were actually going until it was too late. By the time they corrected their aim, the fighter had already fired and broken away. Romano needed a way to see his own fire in relation to the target, not afterward, not on film, but instantly. That night, alone in the tail section with a maintenance flashlight, he noticed something small and easily overlooked. His own reflection, warped and ghostly, staring back at him from the curved plexiglass window. The idea did not arrive as a thunderbolt. It crept in quietly. What if, instead of relying solely on a narrow iron sight, a gunner could see beyond it? What if he could use reflected images to track both target and tracer path at the same time? What if mirrors, positioned at precise angles, could provide peripheral awareness the human eye lacked in that cramped space? Romano began to sketch. His design was crude, improvised, and flagrantly illegal. Army Air Force's technical orders strictly forbade unauthorized modifications to defensive armament. Installing unapproved equipment could lead to court-martial. Romano did not care. With the help of a veteran sheet metal mechanic, Technical Sergeant Frank Kellerman, he scavenged components from wrecked aircraft, small convex mirrors from damaged navigation gear, plexiglass fragments from shattered canopies, a reflector sight salvaged from a crashed P-47 Thunderbolt. Working through the night in a maintenance hangar, they fabricated adjustable brackets and mounted the components inside the tail section. The reflector sight provided a floating aiming reticle. The mirrors, positioned carefully around it, allowed Romano to see the alignment of his guns and the path of his tracers in his peripheral vision. It was not a computing gun sight. It did not calculate lead or range, but it did something just as important. It told the gunner, instantly, when he was wrong. On the next mission, over Munster, the system was tested in combat. A Messerschmitt Bf-109 approached from 6 o'clock level. Romano tracked it through the reflector sight. In the mirrors, he saw his tracers falling behind the target. He adjusted, led slightly more, and fired again. This time, the tracers converged with the fighter. The German aircraft erupted in smoke and flame, rolling away into the void beneath the formation. Romano's first confirmed kill. The celebration lasted less than half an hour. During post-flight inspection, the unauthorized modification was discovered. Officers reacted with fury. Regulations had been violated, safety protocols ignored. Romano was ordered to remove the system immediately. What followed was an argument that captured the central tension of wartime innovation. Discipline versus necessity. Procedure versus survival. Colonel Stanley Ray, commanding officer of the 91st Bomb Group, listened quietly as officers debated. Then he asked a single question. How many bombers had been lost the previous week? 17. How many fighters had tail gunners shot down? 3. Ray authorized a test. Over the next missions, gun cameras recorded every engagement. The results were impossible to ignore. Romano's hit rate was nearly 3 times the group average. His ammunition expenditure per kill dropped dramatically. Other gunners who tested similar mirror setups showed comparable improvements. Within weeks, an improvised production line was established at the airfield. Mirror-assisted reflector sights were installed across the group. Loss rates began to fall. Luftwaffe pilots noted the change. Attacks from the rear became more dangerous. Tactics shifted. By early 1944, the principles behind Romano's weird mirror system had been incorporated into standardized tail turret designs. The Cheyenne turret, fitted to late model B-17Gs, featured improved sights that owed a quiet debt to a 19-year-old gunner who refused to accept failure as inevitable. The psychological impact on crews was profound. Tail gunners who had once felt helpless now felt engaged. Not invincible, but capable. The difference between waiting to be attacked and actively defending oneself cannot be overstated in the air war over Europe. Michael Romano did not seek recognition. He survived the war, endured captivity after being shot down, and returned home to a quiet life. His obituary would not mention mirrors or innovations or the thousands of lives indirectly saved by his refusal to follow the rules. But history remembers results. By forcing the Luftwaffe to abandon its safest attack profile, the improved tail defense altered the dynamics of daylight bombing. It did not win the air war alone, but it shifted the balance just enough at a critical moment to keep the campaign alive. And it did so not through grand design, but through human observation, through frustration, through a young man staring at his own reflection and asking a simple, dangerous question. What if there is a better way to see? In war, the most transformative ideas are often not the loudest or the most celebrated. Sometimes they are small, improvised, almost ridiculous at first glance. Sometimes, they are made of mirrors. If you loved this story and want more history that shocks, inspires, and motivates, subscribe to Rising Warfare, like this video, and explore the incredible tales we uncover. More amazing content is coming, and trust me, you don't want to miss it!